Well, hello.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm doing fine. It's getting very warm here in Texas. How about yourself?
Oh my gosh. People were complaining about coming to Florida for vacation and then not being able to endure the heat. And
Yeah,
like, hello. It's already summertime in Florida. I don't know what you expected, but probably should have checked the weather before you booked the trip, you know.
yeah. I was just there and I think I caught your last week of really nice weather because it was cooler, it was less humid, it was nice, but I think the day I left it got much hotter. So yay
My
for me.
Yay for you. I'm glad you got to enjoy it. We were clinging on to that weather with every thread, saying, please don't go.
For
But
sure.
yes, but
Cool.
now it's the, open front door, and step into the sauna kind of
Yes,
thing
yes.
like you guys have.
Well,
Um,
welcome everybody. Today's stream, we're really excited about it. And honestly, Dee is like super excited about her topic. We're talking about crafting social media posts. We want to give you some tips on getting engagement and getting people to stop and sort of notice things. And, let's just face it, right? Social media and the world in general, it's just overflowing with content, right? People are watching TV and they're on their phones and there's so much content that we're absorbing, and then there's also just this limited attention span for it. So we want to try to answer the questions of how do you make it stand out? How do you make your content stand out? So we're going to talk about three specific strategies to craft the winning posts and build the strong brand presence, especially when you think from platform to platform to platform. Um, with that said, Dee, do you want to kick us off here?
yeah, I'm happy to. I love every topic that we do. Um, so I can't say this is one of my favorites, but it actually is kind of one of my favorites because I think first and foremost, when you're looking at developing that content calendar, really keep in mind variety is the spice of life, and then it's so important to mix up the messaging so you're not always like um, saying not necessarily the same things, but using the same format,
Mm-hmm.
because that's an easy pattern to get into, right? It's just so quick to do like 3 or 4 posts, same type of format, just vary the content a little bit and be done.
Mm-hmm.
But does not really engage the audience.
Right.
And I think today it's all about graphics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use graphics to really stand out, animate your logos,
Mm-hmm.
um, do really accentuate the colors within your brand,
Mm-hmm.
to make things pop off, and really grab that attention of somebody. If you're thinking about an Instagram feed, right, where they're just scrolling along, right, what attracts you to pause and look
Right.
at something, and then try to incorporate that into your own design,
Mm-hmm.
um, video, right? Everybody, is all about video. And of course, video is the easiest way for people to consume information these days. And the engagement rate is much higher than text based
Sure.
types of posts. But consider the tone of voice, try to keep yourself a little lively, don't sound like, you know, uh, one of my old college professors for economics at 8 a.m. on a Thursday that would put me to sleep every day. But, use humor, keep it upbeat. Think of different things that you can bring to the table. If you're selling crafts, maybe give them a peek behind the scenes of, how
Mm-hmm.
do you create those crafts, or something along that way. If instead of, I know you like the checklists, right? But
Mm-hmm.
maybe
Mm-hmm.
instead of that, if you want to use video, do a how to. and use that checklist as a guide for how to, develop a marketing campaign or anything like that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Kind of digest, kind of repurpose, I guess, into a video content rather than text based. So,
Right. Right.
and I think really don't be afraid to kind of experiment. Try it. See if your audience reacts more to something different that's kind of out of your comfort zone. You
Right.
know, being an entrepreneur is being out of your comfort zone, right? Almost like 24/7.
For sure.
So yeah, so I really think that's part of the strategy.
Mhm. And I just you reminded me of something that I started doing recently is because I always talk about how I schedule my time and block my time, and because when I'm thinking about content to create, whether it's a video or a text or the graphic or a checklist or something, a lead magnet we're downloading, what I actually tend to do now is schedule time to create. I do create some of the same types of posts, but I'll schedule them out over 4 months. So if I spend time doing like 4 videos, I might put one on the first week of the month, and then I start just building my calendar further out because it does, for myself, it's hard for me to do a video and then shift to do something else. Like it takes more time. So I'll just try to
Yeah.
do four, things like that. And it's kind of a nice time efficiency approach for me.
Yeah, that's an excellent tip for sure,
Mhm.
and then you can actually see it on the calendar. So you
Mhm.
understand that the format is not going to be repeating on a daily basis or on
Right.
a, week to week kind of basis. You can really see how you're varying it. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the content calendar. Like it doesn't have to be this elaborate, detailed thing. It could just be a video about blank and you just pop them in. And once you look at a map, for me, it helps me a lot. So,
Yeah, I think most of us are more visual,
mhm.
just visual learners. And so think about that when you're creating that content for your audience, right?
Mhm.
If you're that way, and it's very possible that your audience is that way too. So
Right.
give them certain things that they can like hold on to, or, that you want it to be shareable,
Mhm.
right? Oh gosh, this was a really great recipe,
Mhm.
so I'm
Mhm.
going to share it with, my aunt and my cousin and my
Right.
neighbor,
Right.
and get it out there. And then maybe they'll call and order your prepared meals, you know,
Mhm.
the following week because they don't have
Right.
time to do it. It was a great recipe, but nobody's got the time to create it. So they'd rather
Exactly.
order
That's
it.
that's smart.
So,
Mhm.
those types of things. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, what about you? What do you think is like a ready, set, go tip?
Well, I guess for number two, I would talk about the engagement side of things. You kind of hit on this a little bit. Like, having content, having the consistency is really, really important. But the second part of that, I think, is engagement and how do you really stir and start those conversations. And there are some tips and tricks to it. And, even when it comes to LinkedIn specifically, which I've been doing a lot of experimenting and learning with the last 4 months or so, but how can you start a conversation on your post in LinkedIn? And you might tag a colleague that you know is mutually going to support you. Maybe you're going to support them too. You can also start conversations on other people's posts or their newsletters. Like, be a content engager across the board. And then you will also start to see more engagement on your own stuff, which is really interesting. So, be a supporter of conversations, and then also you'll see some of that back and forth because the algorithm does like that. They like you to be that, so therefore you can actually benefit yourself with doing that across the board. But specifically with your own posts, there's a few things I've seen. Post questions and encourage discussions. People do like that. Sometimes you have to really kind of pull somebody out and make sure. um, you might have to be shorter than long, right? So you might have to just say, has anybody noticed this? Have you seen, like, you might have to be real kind of short and abrupt to get the conversations. Otherwise, if you're chat, and the question at the end, you may have lost most people before they even read that question. So you might want to just start with the, cool picture that represents the question and then pop that out there. The other thing is, polls and interactive content. There are some great polls. Lately, I've been seeing them on LinkedIn, and I usually see them when they're done. And I'm like, oh, I wanted to participate in that one. I don't know if I had that experience, but I guess they get closed and maybe they're creating a sense of urgency with me. But I was like, oh, I would have, commented on that. So, but those polls are nice. I don't know if you ever do, the multiple choice or the questions and things that you can do on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I like polls. I like doing them, and I like participating in them. To your point, I think sometimes the way the algorithm puts things into my feed, I do miss out on participating in those as well.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about the be the like the giver of the feedback on other people's content. I've noticed on my own when I do that, when I respond to content that that I'm really interested in, that somebody else has posted, that I get peaks, peaks on my profile, and new connections are made because all of a sudden I have become visible to new people. So
and I would
like that.
I would try, maybe we can talk about another time too, but I would try like commenting on the newsletter things that are post there, because they're kind of more article style, and I feel like they're categorized in a certain way that if you find something that's in your niche or your industry, that it might align better. I'm testing a little bit of that too, but I feel like newsletter ones, because they're more blog article long form, there might be some benefit from commenting on, that post or someone else's post and things like that. Another thing somebody told me was try to get likes on those posts. So, you just want to figure out how can you say something, genuine, helpful, and things like that, and try to get some extra engagement there, because that, like you said, will come back for you.
Yes, I love those, the ones that are recommended for you to add some of your, some of your feedback too.
Yeah.
I do love those as well. And I try to participate as much as I can, And so a good tip that someone shared with me about that is, don't read through the whole thing and feel like, you have to try to figure out what to add that maybe somebody else already said.
Right.
Go to the very bottom and just add your comments to the additional comments section, or whatever it's called at the very bottom.
Yes.
And that way you're not swayed by other people's comments, or feel like you're being redundant or anything, but really just use your voice to give
That's
your
a really good thing. So you don't overthink sort of if it's been answered, or that's smart. So do that. And then if you feel, inclined, you can go back through it. That's a good one. I like that. I think the last part of sort of engagement is, and this really applies to some businesses can do this a lot, and some businesses have to be a little more cautious, but like contests or giveaways and things like that. There's some great opportunities for this. Think about a conference, right? That's a great giveaway, right? Free, whatever, for someone to, comment or share or add a perspective or pictures from last year's conference. Like there's, certain products, certain software things. There's all kinds of areas where you can think about contests and how to use those in giveaways. You just have to make sure that the prize aligns with your brand. So, you may want to give away something cool. Like I could give away an iPad and get probably lots of engagement, but it really needs to be something that aligns more with my brand, and actually is more valuable. Like could be a HubSpot, whatever trial for 30 days or something more valuable that's aligned, because otherwise who wants it is not going to really align with who I need to talk to. So there's kind of this making sure that the prize has purpose and it's, aligns with the brand and then the audience, and then you're good. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That
So
also
yeah.
brings me back to the first idea in terms of the type of content. If you see conferences in the particular industry that you're aligned with,
Mhm.
whether you're going or not, help promote those. If you're
Yes.
going to be there,
Mhm.
then do some live posts,
Yep.
like after a session, jump on and compliment the person that led the
Mhm.
presentation. If you can snag a photo,
Yep.
during it that
Tag
doesn't
them,
give
and
away
that's a
too
great
much.
opportunity. Yep.
Yeah, if it doesn't give away too much proprietary stuff that's up on the screen,
Right.
kind of
Right.
angle it away from their slides or whatever. But, you
Yep.
know, do that and then comment about, what you got out of that session, or,
Mhm.
one point that
Smart.
you're taking away. Um,
Mhm.
and really, again, maximize that engagement with that audience.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up because I do find that conferences tend to have a marketing effort that's very focused during that ramp up time. So I think you're much more likely to get engagement, liked, followed, commented on during that time because their marketing is focused. Maybe it's a 2 month period between, before. But I think that is a good opportunity sort of take advantage of their activity and sort of jump in and, tag presenters, tag up, whatever, tag sponsors. Like there is some good, cross platform or cross opportunity there. So I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
That's a good one. I
definitely.
need to do more conference reviewing. So what about you? So you got one more tip for us today?
So I think you touched on it a bit in terms of, and we've talked about the content calendar. So timing
Mm-hmm.
of when you're posting,
Yep.
timing, not it's a combination of timing in terms of how you're going to set yourself up to create all of this content and then get
Mm-hmm.
it, figured out from a calendar perspective, but then also timing about when are you going to schedule it to go live, what hour
Right.
of the day seems to work. So you need
Mm-hmm.
to play with that until you understand where your audience is.
Yes.
For me, sometimes the biggest return comes on the weekends for LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
because
Yep.
that's when my audience, which is typically, um, managers within or directors within talent acquisition space, that's when they are, free and have
Mm-hmm.
the time. And I see them, engaged more on the weekends,
Right.
or
Right.
the same with my small business entrepreneurs that,
Mm-hmm.
they have that weekend and they might get online real quick, to either post themselves or just look at their feed and see what's going
Yeah.
on. So
They're in more of a learning mindset probably because they're, you know,
yes,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I think, understanding that is huge,
Mm-hmm.
because you're spending, time and energy on this, and you do want it to pay off for you, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of just gaining more relationships, more potential referrals, and all of that sort of stuff through,
Right.
the social media efforts. So
Right.
that's a big deal. And then, even if you find that a certain time of day or time of week works best, don't just stop there and don't become, robotic in,
Mm-hmm.
when you're scheduling, but really mix it up a little bit. Maybe
Yeah.
a 7 p.m. on a Wednesday night
Mm-hmm.
is going to, attract a bigger audience than what you think. So
Yeah.
really continue that
Mm-hmm.
experimentation throughout it,
Mm-hmm.
because we're always changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if your audience are parents or something and they have children that are in athletics or gymnastics or whatever, and they are running around on certain nights of the week, then they
Mm-hmm.
might be off on other nights of the week.
Yeah.
you know
No,
when
it's true.
when they're sitting down. So, and that only flows for that season, right? So,
Hmm.
if my son is playing hockey, that's only a certain time of the year that they're
Right.
going to be focused on that, right? So I
Right.
think it's just, again, experimenting, understanding your audience,
Hmm.
and then trying to figure out when is a good time that they might be on that site, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, because we always push consistency, but it's kind of more of in a broader term, like you just said, because, um, you want to have a cadence of, let's say we post on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, and that is consistently our days. And we generally have times that we try. But you're right. What we try to do is, see what's happening and then make some, small changes so that we can measure it a little easier as opposed to changing everything. But you're right, like from schools in to schools out, or from holiday seasons, or whatever, like it does, there are shifts that happen, and you're not going to know all of them, so sometimes you have to test a little bit for that.
Yeah, yeah, and then let the analytics work for you.
Mhm.
Let those analytics help you to figure out what's working best, and
Mhm.
try to develop the cadence then around what you're seeing bringing
Right.
you and that engagement and those
Right.
results.
And you just reminded me, like if you have, like I said, like I think we have generally like 3 times a week, but what I'm going to try to do more of is to say, okay, for certain days, I'm going to go in and try to comment and share and elevate that post to sort of see what will happen during that time, or maybe even be in groups, or I don't know. There might be some other things I can do while, it's a scheduled thing, but I'm also going to be there, to see if I can elevate it somehow. And then maybe if I'm looking at a whole week, just take the lowest performing one, and that's the one I'm going to adjust the time and say, we'll see. So yeah, analytics, right? It'll show us all that stuff. So.
Yeah, and that's another thing you just mentioned was groups, and we haven't
Mhm.
really talked about how to leverage those, especially on like LinkedIn.
Right.
But it usually will give you the option, I think, when you are reposting something or when you're first posting something, to share it with
Mhm.
certain groups that you
Mhm.
belong to,
Yeah.
and really think about, okay, will that help to give me better exposure, more
Mhm.
traction, by leveraging the groups that I belong to.
Right. And as far as I can tell, as long as you're not just purely selling, with your messaging, if it's actually helpful content, mostly it seems really welcome and invited for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have found as well. It's
Yeah.
just, don't be salesy.
Hmm.
There's no real need for that these days. People don't buy that way anymore.
No.
So, be sincere,
Yeah.
be giving, right? Give before you get kind of
Hmm.
mentality. I know I've expressed that before, but that's really huge because you want to set yourself up for a
Hmm.
relationship with this person that hopefully is going to
Absolutely.
be a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that. It just made me think of the time when almost all car dealers were like that. They were ridiculous. Like, so you just knew you couldn't trust anything. It was crazy. I
Yes.
remember back when Saturn came out, it was a big deal because that was one of their selling points was, we're not going. I mean, it was just like, we're not going to do that. Like, here's the price. We may have some specials, but this is it. And I think a lot of people really appreciated that. So, but
Yeah. It
yeah,
used to be one of the most horrible experiences when
yes,
you had to buy a new car,
uh-huh,
right? It
right,
was just like, "No, I don't wanna spend 8
yeah,
hours at the dealer," because
yeah,
by the time you find the car that you want, then they put you through
yeah.
all of that
You take
negotiation.
your meanest friend, so you can have somebody to be like your anger translator.
Exactly, exactly.
So that's funny.
So we don't need any of that, guys. Please
Mm-mm.
don't do that. If you're doing that, please consider changing your
It's
routine.
time. It's time.
Yes, gotta have a different approach these days, and I think, that transparency is
Mhm.
really where it's at, and, You're not for everybody's cup of tea, but you're not meant to be everybody's cup of tea, you
Exactly.
know?
Hmm. So, I mean, just to sort of wind this down, I mean, if for me, like some of the high points is definitely looking at that calendar and scheduling and thinking about what you're talking about and when for your time efficiency. Also, you know, having some consistency with the broader message or, you know, how you're approaching things, but then you mix it up within and then you also test. I mean, I think those are kind of my high points. And then maybe the LinkedIn newsletters, like really think more about how you can, you know, do that. So, any closing things that you felt excited about more than the others?
I just really think it is, challenge yourself to have the variety
Hmm.
of different things that you're posting about, that you're talking about. It's not always about your product or your service.
Hmm.
It's about what's happening in the real world
Yeah.
too, that you can kind of bring into the brand,
Hmm. Hmm.
and relate it back to an experience that
Yeah.
you've had that helped somebody along the way, helped somebody
Hmm.
to overcome something, or you solved a problem for someone.
Hmm.
So, use that consultative approach, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. And
Um,
don't overthink it, right? Like,
yeah,
these things actually don't have as much shelf life as you think. So just, you know, say something. Just say it, do it, and move forward. So,
right, right. And on LinkedIn, nobody is going to really bash you in ways like they might on
yeah,
Facebook or
generally, yeah,
whatever.
definitely agreed. So, yeah. And, you know, even if you make a typo error, you can edit those. Not a big deal. So,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Just don't let the fear freeze you,
Hmm.
right? Like
Agreed.
you said, just do it and move on. And if you make a mistake, you'll learn from it and
Hmm.
grow and get better. And we all had to take that first step as babies,
Yes.
to be
Hmm.
walking now. So it's just all about realizing where you came from, and that
Hmm.
first step leads you
Yeah,
to the future.
for sure. Well, I guess I'll see you next week and
Yeah.
we'll have some more exciting stuff to talk about. So,
Excellent. Everybody have a great rest of your week. And thanks for
yes.
joining us.
And I'll just post our contact information and then we will wrap it up. I'll talk to you next time.